Hey everybody. So today we're going to talk about Bernard slash Joe Mackey. They're the same person, in case that wasn't clear. If you have not read Crisis or the short story Pet Shop, those are the two we're going to be talking about today. Um, we talked a little bit about him during Pet Shop, when we were talking about Surly Shirley. But Bernard uh, was known as Joe Mackey. Like he was born Joe Mackey, grew up Joe Mackey. Um, in his previous pre-plague life, Juliana called him Bernard because he couldn't speak when they found him. Just like she makes up names for um, people in the asylum because she doesn't know that when they're found unless their family brings them in, and like Elijah does in the Before the Cure series. um, and he is not infected and he can communicate when he chooses to. He decides he does not want to be Joe anymore because he's ashamed of his life as Joe, um, when Ruth and Juliana find him, so he accepts the name Bernard rather than try to correct them. Um, he's uh he's an interesting character. I don't know if this is a small town thing, so this may be a small town thing. When I was growing up and in my life since, a lot of times, people I know, um, they'll come in little groups, and because of how rural it is here, those groups tend to get set and stay for long periods because there's not a lot of alternatives. So when I was a kid, there was a bully on my bus, and his henchmen um, were, I want to say, not as bad. Like that's like the boy that I knew that was the bully was cruel for cruelty's sake. His henchmen were kind of just playing along so they didn't get beat up, kind of thing. And Joe slash Bernard, we'll just call him Bernard from here on, was kind of that way. Now, I've known people like this in my grown up life too, where it's easier to go along with somebody who's more powerful than you and pretend you are not as bright or not as strong or whatever because it's easier to go along, and keep that friendship because there's not a lot of alternatives. So that was originally my idea for the dynamic between Bernard and Gray. And Bernard is a character who thinks of himself as less smart or less capable than Gray is. So he is willing to go along. And I don't think that's actually true of him. I think that's just what he's convinced himself of. I think in part because of this bully when I was a kid, one of his buddies was actually a very intelligent and actually really kind boy if you could get him on his own, if he wasn't around this bully. And in fact, as these two got older, the the henchman buddy actually started to stand up for people and make a break from the bully. So I kind of it's Bernard's not based on him, but that dynamic is one that I had seen multiple times in my life before, but that's the one that sticks out to me the most because a lot of, unfortunately, the ones that I've known in my adult life have not broken with their bully. They just keep going along. Usually, usually I met these people during work. I don't make a habit of making friends with people that follow bullies. I'm just exposed to them sometimes. So, anyhow, I really wanted Bernard to make that break with Gray, and by the time you see him in Crisis, he already has. So, Pet Shop was going back and exploring how he made that break. What I'd be interested in writing another time, possibly, is how he even fell in with Gray, like how he went along with Gray in the first place. Like, why did he choose to do this? Um, Originally, the next series, so the Before the Cure series was not Before the Cure. The next series I was going to write was actually going to be about Ruth and Bernard. They were going to go distribute the cure after they got word that the city was destroyed by the new plague. So they would be like the last, they would have the last of the cure. So that was originally going to be the story for the new series. But then somebody sent me a video of um, the Barney float at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade several years ago. Kind of went rogue and broke a bunch of windows and had to be deflated. And that's why Before the Cure exists, is because of that video, because of that scene. But originally, I did mean to go back to Ruth and Bernard. That was going to be the next piece. As far as his canoe obsession, so this boy that I was talking about, the one that was friends with the bully, we have a main transportation museum up here that every elementary school takes their kids to, and I found it so very, very boring. I don't know why. I'm sure it is fascinating and would be fascinating to me as an adult. As a child, I found it really, really, really boring. But this boy, that you could not get him interested in anything, he was obsessed with it. Wanted to go back every year, like obsessed with it. So that part is from him. And the canoe itself was actually, I had gone to Thailand in college and for a couple weeks to do some research, actually, to do some work. But while I was there, I got to go around the floating market on a day that it was right before monsoon season, so most of the tourists were gone. And I was able to go, you know, when it was just like normal locals being there, and it was fascinating to me. And the boats um, that I got to ride in and got to see people pulling vegetables out of were like the boat in Crisis, where there's like a little kind of cavity underneath for vegetables and things. And because Bernard was the gardener and he was hiding these crops from Gray, I was originally intending it to be like that canoe. So that is where the canoe came from. Um, the dog existed before Shirley, as we talked about, and was just his buddy. I never wrote about how he found the dog. I think that would be a fun story to write someday. I just think Bernard would be a fun character to write again, period, because I think the the scene where he's tortured basically is so shocking to me. Like, I'm the one that wrote it, but still shocking to me, um, that he would not give in. I think that there's a lot of character in there that I didn't get to explore. I also think there's a real relationship with Juliana that didn't get explored as much as I would have liked. Like I said, I intended originally to write a new series with Ruth and Bernard, and it would have been probably from at least partially Bernard's point of view. So there would have been flashbacks to that. Is it something I'll write at this point? Maybe, but obviously Ruth is off with Seth now, so he would have to be on his own. Um, but yeah, it's a possibility. I think finding out what happens um, where he is to all those people that have now been released from the asylum and have to return to their families if their families still exist, and knowing that they were given up and knowing what had happened to them, with him being as an anchor point, could be a really powerful story to tell, especially since the Nella's city no longer exists as like a fallback, like a place where they can go. So I think that would be a very cool story to tell. So that's definitely something that may happen in the future. Um, it's not the one you're getting now, but it is something I've thought about. I think that's it for Bernard. And tomorrow we'll talk about Nella. Okay, I'll see you then.